Hi everybody, how you guys doing today? I hope that you all are doing perfect. I hope that you had a good day as well. Today we'll be having commas from grade 2. Okay, so first log in using the aplusstudent.com. Input your email and password. You scroll over and click on your name. Moving on to language arts and then grade 2. We'll be having commas and yeah, we'll pick the topic that we'll be having today. Hi, B Funks. Welcome. Okay, so we have some lessons from commas, and we will complete those lessons today. We'll start with the first one, which is commas with a series. Okay, so let's go through the explanation first before we continue. Use commas to separate three or more items in a series. So you need to use commas to separate three or more items in a series. Put a comma after each item in the list except for the last one. So if you're having a series, you have to put comma in all of them except the last one. That is the last one after the conjunction. Okay, so just like this, the American flag is red, white, and blue. The American flag is red, white, and blue. So you see that there's a series here, and we have red, comma, white, comma. So usually the last comma comes before the conjunction. We have four conjunctions. I'm sure that you all know that, which are, and, but, or, so. So usually the last comma would come before the conjunction. Okay. Hi everybody. So we have some examples here. We'll look at the examples. Make sure that you take notes that this is commas with series or commas for the series. So we always have to put commas after each series. Okay. So correct the sentence by adding any missing comma. If the sentence is already correct, don't add any comma. So this one you need to correct the sentence by adding commas. Okay. So we have Wilson will plant will plant flowers, bushes, and trees in his garden. So you have to check, is this correct? Is this okay? So now there's this, the first one says Wilson will plant with comma and flowers. No, Wilson is going to plant flowers. Okay, so it is from the first series that you put your comma. Okay, from the first series, that's where you'll be putting your comma. That is from flower. Okay, that's where you put your first comma. So please feed the cat, the dog, and the rabbit. Now it says please feed the cat. So after feed, we're not supposed to have a comma after feed, okay? Because it's telling us what we're supposed to do. So our first comma should come after the cat, okay? So please feed the cat, first comma, the dog, and then that's when you have your commas. Do not put commas if you're trying to like list what you're supposed to do or the sentence, okay? Leaves, branches, and trash are blowing in the wind. So, is there a mistake here? We have to see notes that after the series, you do not need to add a comma. So, like leaves, branches, and trash, you do not need to add extra comma after trash are blowing in the wind. So, do not add that. Okay. So, let's look at some more examples. Okay, will you get to Norwood by airplane, train, or bus? So take note you do not put comma after the conjunction. No, the last comma should be before the conjunction. Okay, so just like this over here, do not put comma after. Okay, the conjunction. Now, your bicycle, your football, and your kite are outside. So you already have the conjunction. So after the before the conjunction is when you have your last comma. Okay, so you shouldn't put unnecessary commas. So it's supposed to be your bicycle, your football, and your kite are outside. Don't put commas after the series or something. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the test. Everybody send in your answers. So can you send in your answers if you are here with us? Send in your answers. Let's see. Okay, just a moment. Okay, so correct the bold part of the sentence by adding any missing commas. If the sentence is already correct, don't add any commas. So if the sentence is correct, you do not need to add any comma. Okay? So we have to look at this one. It says our cat chases chipmunks, squirrels, and birds in our yard. So it's supposed to be the first one because you don't need to put a comma if you're starting the series. Okay, it should be after the first series. So it's supposed to be yes, correct. Option one. Our cat chases chipmunks. Okay. Okay, so the pond, the lake, and the rivers are full of fish. So, what is supposed to be the right answer? The pond, the lake, and the rivers are full of fish. So, is it the first or the second? So, it's supposed to be the first one because the second one has a comma after the conjunction, and we do not need to have a comma after the conjunction. Okay. So it will be the first one as the correct answer. Should we go to the zoo, the game, or the fair? So is it the first or the second? You have to check. Is it the first or the second? Which is the right answer? Is it the first or the second? So it is the first option because the second one has a comma after the conjunction, and you shouldn't have a comma after the conjunction. Okay. So it should be the first one. Yes, good job, Ihoma. So what is the right answer here? Will you get to Norwood by plane, by airplane, train, or bus? Is it the first or the second? What is the best one here? The best answer. So the first option also, because the second one has a comma after the conjunction. So, does the farmer have goats, pigs, and chickens on his farm? Does the farmer have goats, pigs, and chickens on his farm? What is the right answer here? It should be the first one because the second one has a comma after the conjunction. So you do not need a comma after the conjunction. Okay? So, what do fish, turtles, and whales eat? What do fish, turtles, and whales eat? So it is gonna be the first because the second has comma after the conjunction. Okay, so that's it about the commas with series. You have to make sure that you check and make sure that you click on the right answer. You have to note that you have commas after each series. Do not put a comma after the conjunction. So you have to follow the right pattern. Okay, so we'll move on to the next lesson, which is commas with dates. Commas with dates. So in dates, use a comma between the day and the year. So you use a comma between the day and the year. So we just mean like the number and the year. For example, today is the 6th of August. So you would say August 6th, then you put a comma, 2024. Okay? August 6th, 2024. All right, so that's it. So use a comma between the day and the year. So you have to take note. Just like this, this is how you use commas. Okay? So yeah. All right, so let's see some examples. Correct the sentence by adding any missing commas. If the sentence is already correct, don't add any comma. So if the sentence is correct, you do not need to add comma. But if it's not correct, you add your comma. So Miss Gilmore bought her first computer on May 4, 1998. So this is incorrect because you shouldn't put a comma after May. Okay, the month. Okay, don't put a comma after the month. All right? Mm-hmm. You only put the comma after the date. So just like the corrected version here, May 4, 1998. The comma is inserted after the 4. That's the dates. Okay. Next one says the workers finished painting the bridge on May 27, 2009. Again, there's a comma after the month May. We do not need to add a comma after that. Okay, so we have to take notes of that. So Rita's last basketball game was March 16, 2013. Again, do not add a comma after the month, only after the date. That's where we put it. So next, Miss Solomon stopped working on April 20, 1998. Okay, so let's move on to the test. Everybody, send in your answers. Try to participate. Okay. Correct the sentence by adding any missing commas. If the sentence is correct, is already correct, don't add any commas. So, what is the right one here? What is the right answer here? Which of them? Send your answers, let's see. So, is it the first one or the second one? That is the correct answer. Is it the first or the second? The first or the second? So the first option is the second because it's the correct one. Because if you look at the dates, you see that there's a comma after 25, but there's in the second one there's no comma in between the dates. So you have to pick the first one. The workers finished painting the bridge on May 27, 2009. So which is the correct answer here, everybody? Choose one. Which one is the correct answer? So which is the correct answer? Okay, the first one is correct. The second one has a comma after May, and we shouldn't have a comma after May. Miss Gilmore bought her first computer on May 4, 1998. So which is the right answer here? Which is the best one? It is the first one because the second one has a comma after months, and you shouldn't have a comma after. Mm-hmm. Good job. So, which one is the correct answer here? Wait for your answers for page 4. What is your answer for the page 4? Mhm. So it is the first one because the second one has a comma after the month, September. So we shouldn't have a comma after September. Mm-hmm. Okay. Miss Solomon stopped working on April 20, 1998. Miss Solomon stopped working on April 20, 1998. So what's the right answer here? What's the right answer? Uh-huh. What's the right answer, everybody? Option one. Okay, good. And the next one. And then the next one. What is the right answer for the next one? What's the right answer for the next one? What is the right answer for the next one? So, option one. Okay. So, Mandy finished high school on June 14, 2012. What's the right answer here? June 14, 2012. So, what's the right answer? Okay, so the first one. Okay, good, Ihama. All right, so if you haven't done this lesson, make sure that you complete this test. We'll move on to the next one. So the next one is commerce with the names of places. Commerce with the names of places. This is the next one. Names of places. Okay, so use comma between a city and a state or between a city and a country. So you use commerce between a city and a state, just like Miami, Florida, Paris, France. Okay, so you have to put a comma in between both of them, just like this: Miami, Florida, Paris, France. Okay, you put a comma between cities and countries. You have to take notes. Okay, so for example, you want to say Toronto, you put comma and Canada. Okay, or maybe Vancouver and comma then Canada. Okay, so you always have to put a comma after the name of the city and the country. So in between them, there's a comma. If there's no comma, then it's incomplete. The sentence is not correct. Okay, so let's look at some example. Do we have time to stop in Salem, comma, Oregon? So you shouldn't put a comma before stop. No, we do not need a comma before stop. Your first comma should come after Salem. Okay? It should come after Salem. In the Wills Tower, the Wills Tower is a tall building found in Chicago, Illinois. So it is correct, but we don't need to have a comma after the Wills Tower. We don't need a comma there. Don't put a comma after the Wills Tower. Only put a comma after the Chicago, okay? Then that's correct. One of the world's most beautiful building is in Cordoba, Spain. So you can put a comma after Cordoba, Spain, but do not put a comma after building. We don't need a comma after building. Okay? No need for comma after building. So look at this, send in your answers. Alright guys, send in your answers. Let's see. For this one of the world's most beautiful building is in Cordoba, Spain. Which one is the correct answer? First or second? Mm-hmm. So what's the right answer? First one or second one? Send in your answer. So we'll go with the first one. That's the correct answer. So my best friend is moving to San Diego, California. First one or second? You do not need a comma after my best friend, which is the second one. There's no need for comma. So you have to put the comma after San Diego. So the first one is the correct one, but the second one is not correct. So there are many beautiful homes in Cooperstown, New York. There are many beautiful homes in Cooperstown, New York. Now, after beautiful homes, we have comma. So we do not need a comma after beautiful homes. Okay, no need for comma after the homes. We put the comma after Cooperstown. Hi, Basil, how are you? Chineye. Okay, so we put the comma after Cooperstown. Okay, so the second one is the correct answer. Okay, so the Wright brothers were from Dayton, Ohio. So which one is the correct one? Okay, so after brothers in the second one we have comma. We do not need to have comma after brothers. Okay, so no need for commas after brothers. So you put the first one. Okay, Luke wants to go to the zoo in Denver, Colorado. So Luke wants to go to the zoo in Denver, Colorado. Now we have comma after Luke. We do not need a comma after Luke. No, you put your comma after the Denver. Okay? So this one. So comma should be here. There are many gardens in Kyoto, Japan. So what is the right answer here? Is it the first or the second? Now, the second one has there are many and comma after there are many. So we do not need comma after there are many. Okay? We do not need comma after that. The right answer should be the first one. Okay? The right answer should be the first one. They walked around Kew Gardens in London, England. Which is the right answer? Is it the first or the second? You do not need comma after the gardens. No need for comma after the gardens. You pick the first one. Yes, no need for commas after gardens. Okay, so this one, the first one. Okay. Do we have time to stop in Salem, Oregon? Now, no need for comma after stop. The first one is the correct one. Okay, so you guys can continue and finish up this lesson if you haven't done that, and we'll move on to the last lesson from this test. Okay, we'll move on to the last. So the next one is commas review. Okay, so we have a review for the commas. Okay, so use commas to separate three or more items in a series. So this is just a review of everything that we've done from commas. Of course, you remember that we have to use comma to separate three or more items in series, and put a comma after each item in the series except the last one. Just that, like the American flag is red, white, and blue. So we did this in the first lesson. The second one is in dates, use a comma between the day and the year. Okay? Use a comma between the day and the year. Use a comma between a city and state, or between a city and the country. Okay, so we have to take note of this as well. Miami, Florida, you have to put a comma in between. And then day and the year, you have to put a comma after the day, okay, like the number there, okay, not after the month. Okay, so, the first spacecraft to visit Pluto took off on January 19, 2006. So, if you look at this, after the January, it is incorrect. You do not need to have a comma after January, you have comma after the date 19. We can't wait to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So you have to take note. You have to put a comma after Santa Fe, not after to go or something, okay? You have to put a comma between the city and the country. Take notes. So for the series, there are monkeys, elephants, and lions at the zoo. So you need to put a comma before and before the conjunction. So you have to put a comma before the conjunction. Okay, so this was a review of everything we've done. Everybody send in your answers. This is the last part to ensure that you remember everything we've done. Okay? Now, the painter Pablo Picasso was born on October 25, 1881. So, which is the most suitable answer? Is it the first one or the second one? First or the second? Which one? Everybody send in your answers. First or second? Is it the first one or the second? So it is the first one because you need to put a comma after the dates. So Dana's aunt lives in London, England. The first or the second? Which one? Is it the first or the second? The first or the second? So the second one has comma after ants. We do not need comma after ants. The comma should be after London, England. Okay? So in between London and England. Elaine has a bed, desk, and chair in her room. So this is for the series. So we do not need comma after has. It should be Elaine has a bed, desk, and chair in her room. So this one. What is there to see in Berlin, Germany? What is there to see in Berlin, Germany? What can you see there? Good, thank you, Ihama, for your answers. What is there to see? What's the right answer? So the first one is correct because you need to have a comma in between the city and the country. So Berlin should have a comma and then Germany. You your first tooth fell out on November 13, 2012. So you should have a comma after the date, not the months. Okay, November 13. So you should have a comma after the dates. We can't wait to go to Santa Fe, New York. We cannot wait. So you should have a comma after the city and the country, just like this. Do you know where my shoes, coats, and hats are? You do not need to have a comma after these hats because you do not put comma after the last series, okay? You have to put a comma before the conjunction, okay? This one. We take our cat, dog, and rabbits to the vet. So which one is the right answer? The first one. The comma should be before the conjunction, not after rabbits. No, the first is the best. We take out cats. So the first one, yeah. Now, the McDowell family has a frog, a turtle, and a mouse. So is it the first or the second? It has to be the first one because you need to have a comma after each series. Okay. So yeah. All right. So everybody, try to complete this test if you haven't done all these. After this, you can move on and answer your final test. I hope that you all understood our lesson for today. Um, but we do you have any questions? If you have any questions, let me know on the chat. Do you have any questions? Any questions, guys? So if you have no question, we will end here for today and see you guys in the next class. Okay? Do have a good evening and bye everybody.